These are the songs and stories of our lives. Words on a page create a special feeling that become memories. Favorite melodies sung in harmony, lyrics that will tell your story. Come and join the adventures that we now share.
Welcome to this episode of the Songs of Our Lives, a program where we talk with seniors about the role music has played in their lives. In this episode, we will hear from Lynda Hijazi Stanwick, who will be interviewed by her sister, Lois Rindlisbacher. We will also hear from Phil Parent, who will perform Moonlight Sonata at the piano for Lynda. Let's tune in to Lynda and Lois and see what those two sisters are up to.
Well, good afternoon. I am privileged to be sitting with one of my very favorite people in the whole world, someone who thinks and speaks with her whole heart and soul. No matter what it is that we're going to be talking about, that's how Lynda, my sister, works, from her heart and her soul. And she is not afraid to say what she thinks. And so talking about one of our favorite topics in life, music, this is just such a beautiful just a beautiful time together, Lynda, just even going over some of the memories and talking about what you remember, what I remember as children and our household. So again, welcome, Lynda, to this version of, or this episode of Songs of Our Lives. I introduce to you my sister Lynda Stanwick Hijazi.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. And before we get too far into this, I want to say that initially I was a little bit hesitant because one of the things they told me was that I had to pick a favorite song, which sent me into chaos because there are so many songs in my head and heart that I could not possibly narrow it down to one. But I would like to say that this is such a wonderful thing for Ian and Lois to be doing, because what it managed to do was dig into my soul and start to bring back all those memories and all the thoughts and all the ideas and all the music experience of my life, which is extensive. And it wouldn't have come out all together like this had it not been for the fact that they urged and pushed me to take part in this. So I have and do appreciate it. And I hope that all of you who are going to be seeing all of these various videos over time will also appreciate the fact that Lois and Ian have dug into your hearts to figure out what music is in there and why.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. And as you said before, I talk from the heart.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I also talk from the eyes. So I have to get a Kleenex because I'm already starting to get drippy. Give me 1 second.
My sister. So Lynda moved to Toronto when we were probably in your 20s, Lynda. So obviously we grew up here in Windsor. So let's start with our home life back on Parkwood and moving to Gladstone. So let's start back in, well, I was born in 1958, and I was a new introduction to you, and being my oldest sister. We have a brother as well and a younger sister. But all right, so let's go back to the years on Parkwood and what music you remember and how you remember it and what role our parents had and our siblings. So take it away, Lynda.
A lot of what I remember from those very early days is a mix. my father was pretty broad-minded with his music, maybe a bit of a slant towards country and western, which I'm not really fond of,
And I love a
and Lois
country
loves,
girl.
which
Yep,
Lois loves.
yeah.
But he also liked classical and some current stuff. And on the other hand, my mother was an opera lady, and the Italian parts of her came to the fore. So when you mix all that together, the music that interested me and that we listened to over our lives was very eclectic.
Mm.
I also very strongly remember, and I when we were little, you weren't even around yet, or
Mm.
maybe way too little. The family was all in Windsor, all kinds of relatives, cousins, aunts, and uncles, and they had big weddings,
Mm.
and kids were invited to weddings.
Mm.
And that was heaven for me because there was music and dancing. And at the end of every wedding, because they were all Italian in Windsor, it was my mother's family, our mother's family. At the end of every night, every wedding, they would sing Mazzoling di Fiori. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I do. I actually do.
Okay. And a lot of them were up in the top rafters where I would presume the choir would be,
Mm.
or the music would be in a church hall. And sometimes all of us kids, like cousins and all that, would go up there and watch the people dancing and singing. And it was always an exciting thing to be doing. I loved weddings.
Mm.
And I guess from there, it just always progressed. Music was always there. And of course, it changed because as you get older, you want to be part of it all. And I was trying to figure out when the earliest parts of music came, and I guess it was in church, singing the church songs. And I was also in virtually every church choir, whichever church we were with at the time. I don't know if I can name them, St. Michael's at one point, but Sacred Heart,
Mm.
school choirs. But I remember being up in the loft in Sacred Heart and Christmases and Easters,
Mm.
and they would sing all those glorious, beautiful, not even hymns, but glory songs. And I always got right into it and loved it. And I must say, my voice then was not what it is now. But I am going to, at some point throughout this circus, talk about me and the singing of my life. So anyway, as you got into being a teenager, you went further away from the country and western and further away from the opera, and you met somewhere in the middle. And I was a child, well, a teenager of the 60s and 70s. And the Beatles and folk singing, and that was the call of my life. And I didn't so much like the early Beatles, like I Want to Hold Your Hand, to me was very trite and I don't know, kind of just juvenile.
Interesting.
But as I got older and in university, the newer kind of Beatles wove their way into society, and all the hippie culture and all that stuff. I was all a part of that and loved the music. And it was constant in my life. There was always music in the background or in the foreground. You're supposed to be reminding me of things I
Well,
told
I was
you.
just gonna say, we spoke about, so they're doing, say, a progression of our lives. In high school, you organized the dances. So tell us about your position in high school and what you did with high school dances.
I loved the high school dances. I went to Kennedy Collegiate, and they had always had dances, but in those particular years, they were the biggest deal in Windsor
Mm.
because Kennedy was situated right next door to the football field.
Mhm, mhm.
And every Friday night, there was a football game. And even through the winter and all the whole rest of the year, when Kennedy still had we called them the Stardust dances.
Mm.
And for a couple of years, I worked on the committee. And I think sometimes we had bands, but a lot of times it was recorded music.
Mhm.
But in grade 12 and 13, I worked my way into being the president of the Stardust Committee. And that was like my guiding light in life at that phase. Always the dancing, always the music, always the circling around the room, the big gym, and remembering like the Righteous Brothers.
Mm.
What was the song they played in Ghost? You know the one I mean. Anyway, the
Change-
Righteous
Yes, yes,
Unchained Melody.
yes,
Right.
yeah.
And they were a big, big part of that phase of my life.
Okay.
And of course, there was rock and roll and stuff like that, but it was eclectic. It was a bit of everything.
Hmm.
And I enjoyed most of it. And I guess it was once I was getting into university that music just became music and musicians became where I was at.
Because you dated some, move your hands a little bit. You've changed the volume, or so whatever, you moved your hand somewhere. But okay, so going from high school, now you did speak about somebody who said to you that you should make music a career, and this dancing and that sort of thing, all a career.
In university.
Okay, so
A lot of my friends were very into music.
mm,
And early, maybe in second year or something, anyway, early on in university, there was a group of friends who had formed a band,
okay.
and they worked their way into being invited to do a tour. And they asked me if I would be their lead female singer. And I even remember a picture that they took at that time. And it was the straight down the middle part of hair, and your hair came straight down, stick straight, and the hippie granny glasses kind of thing. And they wanted me to go on tour and be the singer. But I'm a Taurus and a homebody and the oldest kid, and you just couldn't do such a thing. So I didn't, but it was there on the table. And then at the University of Windsor in those years, we had a place called the Pub.
Oh, yes.
And we used to have live singing and also recorded music, but there were also live things going on as well. And I was a big part of all that. And then we also had another place called The Room, which was more the folksy side of stuff. The Pub was more the raucous rock and roll, dancing and drinking and all that silliness. And then there was also
Playing
The
euchre.
Room.
And playing
Sorry?
playing euchre. You spent a
No,
lot
that
of
was in the cafeteria.
Oh, okay. I know you spent a lot of time playing euchre in university.
That was during class time.
Okay.
I did graduate.
Yes, you
with a
did.
degree in psychology and sociology.
You've done very well, Linda.
Anyway, it was more the evenings that I'm talking about with the music. And in this place called The Room, it was more folk singing.
Peter,
So a
Paul,
much
and Mary.
quieter.
Yep, Peter, Paul, Mary kind of music.
Peter, Paul, and Mary,
Joni
Joan
Mitchell,
Baez,
Joan Baez, yes.
all that, exactly. So that was all a part of it. And then I guess later on into the later years of university, different musical friends, one of whom was very well known in Windsor, Detroit, who has now passed away.
Phil
Phil
Chauvin.
Chauvin,
Right, okay.
who was extremely also into music. He played a harmonica, many harmonicas. And I also was friends with another band, and they did more like Rolling Stones kind of covers, Brown Sugar and all that Rolling Stones stuff.
Right.
And then Phil was very into the blues and jazz scene. So we
Okay.
used to go back and forth to Detroit a lot and to the Detroit clubs. And he played, and we would go backstage and meet
Oh,
the
that's
blues players like
Yeah.
Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee.
okay.
And I heard later on that he actually went on tour with BB King.
Oh,
But so there was all that blues part of my life.
right.
And at that same time through university, our brother Blake was also very into music,
Mm,
more the Motown stuff,
exactly. Oh,
which was also wonderful.
yeah. Yep.
Um,
Now, one thing that I found interesting when you talked about Phil was that he invited you to go to Woodstock. Tell us about your Woodstock story and what our mother said.
if I'm not mistaken, I think Woodstock was in 1969.
Oh, okay.
Somebody would have to confirm that, but summer of 69. And it was a big deal. Everybody was talking about it everywhere. And I initially thought it was Woodstock, Ontario. And of course, wanted to go. You know, Phil had a sports car actually. And it would have been very cool for us musical types to go to Woodstock and be a part of it all.
Right.
However, as we all now know, one of the major events, musical historical events of all time, it was in New York, and our mother would not let me go. It was like she just wouldn't let me go. And I know you remembered there were things she wouldn't let you go to
Oh,
either.
sure.
But I didn't get to Woodstock. I have the album, I've seen the movie, I know all the songs. I feel like I was there, but indeed, our mother would not let me be there.
And it was 1969. Yeah, sad.
Good.
Well, it's like I said today, parenting seems to be a little bit different. You just say you're 20 years old. I'm going to Woodstock, and off to Woodstock you would go, right?
Yeah, that's not how it went back then.
Oh, and so let's talk about all of, and this will take some time, and I'm very excited to talk about this part of music in your life, is some of the concerts that you've been to. Like even just chatting with you earlier, you know, and being in Toronto, so you had, you know, the venues there, you're close to them, and so tell us some of your earliest recollections of concerts. I like your Elton John story. And I do remember.
Go down, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Even in Windsor / Detroit,
Right.
did a lot of concerts.
Yes.
Some of which my friends were in, but they also had bands at all the clubs back then.
Okay.
So we would go to all the clubs. I would drink water for the most part. and eat one of those boiled eggs that they had in jars.
Oh,
You know, it wasn't about the drinking, it was about the being there for the music and the
music.
dancing.
Awesome.
I guess I was not a roadie, but a fan girl or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was in the beginning. But then even from then, I can't remember so many that I went to, but oh, I do. Little Stevie Wonder
That's the one I was, yeah.
was, I don't know, maybe 12 or 10 or 12 or 14. He was little, a little boy.
Wow.
And we went to Detroit, and he was just a little blind boy.
Who would you have gone to that concert with?
I can't remember.
Okay,
Phil, friends, I
okay,
can't remember.
right. Because I didn't know age-wise if that would have been, you know, Stevie Wonder was 12. I don't know how old he is in relationship to how old you are,
We're in
but
the same general range.
I would think. But then if he was 12, you
Yeah, I can't remember.
okay, fair.
But he, in any case, he was little Stevie
Oh,
Wonder.
yep, that's awesome.
And then, interestingly enough, once I had moved, this is to connect up with him. Many years later, when I was all grown up and actually married already, Stevie Wonder came to Toronto, and I went with my husband, and my other sister and her friend also wanted to go, but we couldn't get tickets together.
Ah,
So we had 2 tickets on the floor, and they were on a lifted up stage
oh,
in Massey Hall, I think it was.
okay.
So we were there looking at him up like this.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, because we were right close up to the stage. And I'll never forget there's a song where the women kind of dance with scarves.
Oh,
Overjoyed, la da 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 da. And I'll never forget those scarves swaying. Anyway, beautiful melodies. He's so in tune with the sound, given that he can't see.
right.
Obviously his musical ability has skyrocketed anyway. And then at the halftime of the show, we switched seats with my sister and her friend who were up in the rafters. So we saw the concert from a whole different perspective.
Yes, we've done that. It's
So
different.
totally fascinating.
Yes,
Totally
yes,
fascinating.
yes,
Anyway,
yes.
loved Stevie Wonder, still do to this day. He won some kind of an award on one of the shows recently, and I still feel like I know him personally.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, you hear the songs and you just make that connection all over again.
Yep, yeah, it's all about connections.
Yeah, that's what our father taught us.
100%.
All about connections.
Talk
Anyway.
about Barbara Streisand.
Well, we're leaving out a whole bunch of people. Ottawa, Lynda Ronstadt.
Ah,
In Toronto, we saw so many. Lionel Richie,
mm,
twice, I think. And he, as you know, he's still on TV doing, he's one of the judges on American Idol.
yep.
Wonderful concert. And then when we were in Ottawa, we would go to Montreal and Ottawa. Neil Diamond, big at the time. And we went to Montreal to see him. And I remember saying his concert and the control over the audience was so intense and dramatic that he could have asked his people to jump up and down in their seats, and whatever he wanted them to do, they would do. He just had such a complete grip on the audience. One of the better concerts that I remember, but so many. And now I'm trying to remember. when Elton John, actually when I was still in university, my roommate, was out for a bit with a roommate, and a friend of hers at the time went to England for a summer.
Okay, yeah.
And when he came back, he brought this album, like the regular LP album, black cover.
Made their turn to come back again, eh? That was a big thing at Christmas a few years ago, buying the, a regular LP.
Yes,
Yeah. So,
LPs are all back now. My son has a collection.
yeah. Yeah.
He's very into me. Actually, this is my middle guy. He spent a lot of time. He's very into music. He actually spent some years as a music reviewer. Not for anything I would listen to,
Yeah.
but he was a published reviewer, apparently well respected in his genre.
Wow.
But anyway,
Elton John.
Elton John. So this is back in, let's say, 1970 or 71. We had rotary dial telephones. And at the time, the only way you could get tickets was a struggle. You could either go down and wait in lines that waited overnight and whatever, or you could phone, I think. Obviously you could phone, because I spent a whole morning rotary dialing the number and getting busy and I spent hours just doing it, nothing else. And I finally did get through, and we got tickets to Elton John. He was in a very small venue at that point in time. Oh, I forgot about the record. So when he came back from England, he brought this album, the black one with a picture of Elton John with very ordinary glasses on.
Yep.
It was, I believe the album was called Your Song.
It was, because I remember it.
Okay, so his very first album. And I remember him telling us, this guy's going to be a big deal. Nobody in North America had ever heard of him.
Oh, wow.
Like my relatives in the States, nobody in Windsor, Canada, like he was a complete unknown.
Wow.
But because he had just been there in England and brought this particular one back.
Yep.
So I was a little ahead of the game on Elton John. So again, there was that connection. Anyway, when we did get those tickets in this smaller venue in 70 or 71, we got seats that were directly in the middle of the theater, 3 rows back from the front, 3, 4. In any case, close enough that when Elton John was standing on the stage, I could literally see his eyelashes.
That's awesome. Can you imagine being that close to him now?
Right?
Yeah.
And then many years later, probably 15, even 20 years ago, I went again to see Elton John with a friend. But of course, at that time, he was in the Air Canada Centre, which was jam-packed, sold out to the rafters, thousands and thousands of people.
Right.
The only way you could basically see him anywhere near his eyelashes was on all the multi-TV screens.
And even then it would be hard. Wow.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Elton John is still he's still a biggie to me. I have to give him credit for that.
Good, good.
And, I'm trying to think of some of the other people. There was something else I had said to you. The difficulty in being able to pick one song kind of was overwhelming to me, because my tastes, as I said, were so eclectic, and from one phase of my life into another and into another. But there were always these roots and these connections. And to me, I value either the melody of a classical piece, or the singing quality.
Mm.
I have really very little use for current singers who seem in many cases to be really all they want to do is who can jiggle around the most wearing the least amount of clothes. And to me, that's not really what music is all about.
Fair.
Give me quality singing,
Sure.
timeless melodies,
Sure.
songs that people will know and recognize forevermore. And there are often notes and pieces of songs that weave into the future.
Mhm.
Another one this brings to mind, one of the songs that came to mind early on was Moonlight Sonata. When you
Beautiful
were
song.
talking
Yeah.
about, what's your song, and that seemed to be one of the ones that I thought of, but not necessarily because it was my very favorite of all time. Like I said, can't pick one.
Mhm.
But an interesting note about that, if you remember the very simple beginning, da, 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 da,
I
da,
played it on the piano because you loved it. And when I played piano, that was one of the songs that I learned by heart and for you. That's again, that's one of my memories. Yeah. So that's awesome. How we remember things exactly the same, but completely different, you know?
different,
Yeah.
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 Thank you for that.
Mhm, mhm.
So anyway, when I was getting married, Chicago was a big deal, the group Chicago. And at the time, one of the big songs was Color My World,
Beautiful song.
which
Beautiful.
also starts
Mhm.
with almost the same beginning as the Moonlight Sonata.
Yeah.
And then it weaves and grows. To me, I think Color My World should be considered for every bride and groom walking down an aisle, because the pacing is beautiful, the words are beautiful, the melody is perfect. Anyway, at the time, I was breaking all the rules,
Mm.
trying to get married in a Catholic church, listening to Color My World. But fortunately, the Sacred Heart, which is the church that we were members at, was willing to entertain it.
That's awesome.
And we had somebody come in with I don't know what, a record player or a tape player, I think at the time. And they played it through and we practiced walking, and it was at the same kind of pacing as the ordinary wedding march, but heaven forbid that I should do the wedding march or any such normal thing like that. For me, it was Color My World. And indeed, people talked about it for years and years to come. Because who walks down the aisle to Color My? Well, then later on, a lot of people were starting to do that.
That's right. And
It
change
became a
the
very
song.
commonplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that was another important memory.
So that was really awesome that you took I'll call it a leap of faith, really, that you changed the music scene in Windsor by choosing something different, something non-traditional, and you really made a difference in other people's lives because, like you said, people talked about it for so long. So way to go, Lynda. That's awesome. Yeah. You also talked about Dr. Disc. Is that correct? Am I saying it right? No, that's
Dr. Music.
Dr. Music. Well, I remember Dr. Disc on Lead Avenue. So tell us about Dr. Music.
Okay, so when I was first in Toronto, which was back in 72, 3, again, music. Somewhere along the line, I met a music man who actually was the manager of Doug Riley, which was called Dr. Music. So he was Dr. Music's manager.
Okay.
And one time we were in his, this is my contribution to music.
Okay.
I singing in the room, folk songs and the dances and all that stuff, and going to all these concerts. I also did enjoy singing, and at that time I could sing quite nicely, thank you very much. Can't sing
Know that.
anymore. I cannot sing anymore. It was always wonderful singing in church and being heard and
Mm.
expounding on the beautiful music, but I can't anymore. Anyway, at that point, he was in this manager, was in the kitchen making dinner, and Carole King's Tapestry album was on, playing in the living room.
Mhm.
And I sang through, which has been done by many, many people since then, Natural Woman.
Mm.
And I sang with Carole King, along with her Tapestry music, beginning to end, note for note. And he came out of the kitchen and over the next several months spent a good deal of time trying to convince me that I should allow him to be my manager, because he figured he was going to make me the next Maureen Forrester of Canada.
Wow.
She was getting on, brilliant, brilliant songstress,
Okay.
but he was getting on, and he figured I was going to be the one who could take over from her and carry it on. Anyway, I'm, like I said earlier, I'm a homebody. I had a good job with the government. Wasn't my style. I didn't do it, but
Yeah.
I did love singing.
You also said you were notably a Barbara Streisand, not only a fan, but that you sounded like her as well, or you can sing like her. You told me a story about that as well.
I guess I could imitate certain people that I liked. One time when I was working in Ottawa, we had a Christmas concert, and of course everyone singing Christmas carols, and Barbara Streisand's Ave Maria. She did more than one different version, but I remember the one that I was singing at that particular time, and the head big boss of the organization that I was working for was standing beside me, and I was singing along with all the hundreds of other people, but he was standing beside me, and I sang Barbara Streisand's version of it, and he just stood beside me quietly and listened. And at the end, he said he couldn't believe that it was me there singing and not Barbara Streisand.
That's awesome.
Needless to say, she is one of my idols.
Right.
I did eventually, after a great deal of effort, there were 4 of us. She didn't do concerts for a long time.
Oh.
She was afraid of going on stage.
Oh.
She spent about 10 years not doing concerts. And at some point she came back on the scene. And when we heard about it, I had both of my boys on computers. I went out to a venue to buy tickets, and my girlfriend was on her whatever computer or something or what. Anyway, there were 4 of us trying to get tickets. Ultimately, we did. We were up in the rafters. I think we were 2nd or 3rd row from the top of the Air Canada Centre. And when she came up out of the floor,
Oh.
like a gap opened up and she
Yep.
rose up out of the floor.
Yep.
And we were so high up in the rafters that I could see the top of her head as it came up. But I did see Barbara Streisand in person.
Yep.
And I think she's one of God's gift to the world.
Right.
And I will never not appreciate her. And I do want to add that while I don't have a whole lot of appreciation for so many modern singers, there are some songstresses who carry their weight in beautiful ways. Christina Aguilera is brilliant.
Mm.
Adele.
Mm. Yeah.
Lady Gaga.
Mm.
And I have seen Christina Aguilera. She's amazing.
Mm.
We don't all know all the different facets of her skills and her talents, but she's really got it going for her.
Mm-hmm.
Adele,
Mhm.
you know, these are more modern people. I shouldn't say modern, they're not the current kind of music,
Mm.
but they are timeless singers.
Exactly.
And that's what I appreciate. That's another part of why I still love American Idol and Canadian Idol when we had it.
Mhm.
I went to so many Canadian Idol productions. I met all the judges. I met a lot of the singers. And it was actually at that point, my dream was to go on and be one of the behind the scenes coaches for Canadian Idol, because you are lifting these young people up to
Mm. Mhm.
develop their skills and their talents
Mhm.
and share with the world their God-given abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
to me, that would have been the perfect job,
Mhm.
would have been guiding these young people
Mhm.
to fulfill their absolute God-given gifts.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we can't go too far being Canadian and the idol shows and without talking about Celine Dion for a minute. Like there's
I
a
saw Celine Dion when she was a little girl
see.
in Ottawa, long before she became famous. It was Canada Day in Ottawa, and she was up on the stage there. She was not heard of. She was a little girl from Quebec,
Mm.
and I saw her way back then. Again, one of the best singers of all time.
That's
I
right.
still love her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And over the years, I never have seen her recently, but
Okay.
I saw her when she was a little girl. And also, I gotta say, you and I have even been to some of these concerts
Right.
together. More current.
Yep.
Josh Groban,
That was amazing.
brilliant.
He also came out of the floor in London. We went to see him in London
And in Toronto.
and in Toronto. Yep. That was awesome.
And we also went to Andrea Bocelli
Yeah.
in Michigan.
Yep.
Another one of my, and that harkens back to the opera and the Italian part of me, and the fact that the man sings with the voice of an angel.
Right. Yeah.
You know, there are so many extremely talented singers
Yes.
out
Yes.
there.
Yes.
I have not played a music instrument as such.
Mhm.
I took piano lessons from our Aunt Loretta,
Mm.
I think for 2 lessons for 10 minutes each, and it didn't work out. My only instrument back at that part of my life was my voice.
Mm.
I know you did play
Mhm.
the piano. I know Ian, obviously. I mean, you guys are all into music now, and I praise that. It's wonderful. Even there's the music in the
Yeah.
background
Yeah.
there behind you. Ian played the piano at my daughter's wedding, which was a thrill.
Yeah.
But I guess in kind of trying to wind all this up, no, I didn't play an instrument, but I sang.
Mm.
But more importantly, I appreciated from the moment I was a child
Mhm.
right through to today the
Yeah.
beauty and the quality of timeless music.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you bringing this all out in me,
Mm.
because it kind of lays in there buried, you know,
Mm.
given
Mhm.
COVID and given that you're listening to the news and all the other kind of stuff that's going on in the world. The music is such a beautiful part of our world.
Mm.
And I really value the fact that you and Ian have gotten me thinking about it again. I have pulled out, I have been lately more so than I was for a while, but just pulling it out and listening to various pieces
Good.
and appreciating the fact that you are doing this not only for me, but for everybody who's going to hear this. I hope everyone gets some heartwarming memories stirred up and thinks about, oh, I remember when, and oh, maybe I should do this again now, and just bring it all back out in the world at large. Good on you guys for doing all this.
Thanks.
Have we left anything out?
I don't think so. Well, the only last thing I'll ask is, I know you said you had so many favorites, and understandably so. And for sure, we could have a long interview. But in the value of time, as they say, because of time, what would your song request be that you would like us to have performed for you, my dear sister?
Well, it kind of came up between the three of us talking together, but one that jumped to mind, we've touched on earlier, the Moonlight Sonata, which
Beautiful.
you learned to play
Yep.
so I could listen,
Yeah.
which also kind of led me into the Color My World because of the beginning notes, and
Sure.
also the fact that it's kind of always there. Classical music does not go away.
No.
You hear different people doing different productions.
Yeah.
There are some Moonlight Sonatas that I like better than others.
Sure.
And if you ever, I can't play it. I can't play the piano. I wish I could. But if I hear one note off, I know it.
Yeah.
And that kind of just seems to be one of those songs that can be playing in the background of life.
That's right. Yeah.
Leading you into all the thoughts, all the many years of my life. I don't have to give you a specific number, but it's a lot of numbers. and hence a lot of music and a lot of thoughts and memories. And I love that you are sharing this with whoever is listening.
Well, thank you, Lynda. Thank you for that. Thank you for the encouragement to continue to do these kind of interviews with people and recognizing how valuable music is. And like you said, right from the beginning, the lyrics, I more write lyrics, so that words are so important, right? And again, right from the beginning, I said you share your heart and soul. So thank you for sharing your heart and soul with us. The last thing I want to say is, and usually in all things with you, I say this because it matters. You have said to me, how do you spell love? And most people would say 4 letters, but your 4 letters are T-I-M-E. So Lynda, thank you for taking your time out of your day to be able to share this with all of us. And to the viewers, thank you for taking your time to watch these shows and to see how music has played in various ways and in so many lives and just touches us all in different ways. So thank you, Lynda. I love you. Thank you for doing this, and have a wonderful. Thank you.
And I too look forward to hearing all of the others.
Good. Oh, there's some great ones.
I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lois and Ian for all of this.
Right back at you.
For sharing our hearts and souls in this way.
Thank you, Lynda. Have a great day.
Bye and goodbye, everyone. Yeah, yours always looks so much better. Bye. Love to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynda and Lois, for sharing such memories and stories about the music of your lives. Stay tuned now as we hear Mr. Phil Parent perform Ludwig van Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Thank you, Phil. That piece is so haunting and mesmerizing, and you played it quite well. Thank you also to Lynda and Lois for your interview. Lastly, thanks to all of you for tuning in to the Songs of Our Lives.